A very good evening. Thanks for joining us on the news at 7. I am Comfort Amodu. But first, let's begin with the headlines. Preparations for resumption of flight operations in Nigeria after COVID-19 lockdown peak as Presidential Task Force undertakes flight test run. 2020 MSME Stay United Nations drums support for small and medium-sized enterprises amid coronavirus pandemic. Immediate past chairman of the All Progressives Congress, Oshomole, accepts fate, asks lawyers to withdraw planned legal challenge. And here are details of the news. 3 months after flight operations were suspended to contain the spread of coronavirus, a test flight departed Abuja Airport to Lagos this Saturday, involving members of the Presidential Task Force, expected to evaluate preparations for flight resumption. New airport protocols, which include the application of robotic profiling, expected to process passengers, formed part of what the passengers will have to adjust to when flight operations resume. Aviation correspondent Emmanuel Ayimiro reports.
The simulation exercise is what passengers are expected to go through when flight resume. Members of the PTF and journalists formed the crowd subjected to all the guidelines irrespective of status. Apart from the floor and seat markings intended to reduce physical contact, the robotic machines being deployed are expected to disinfect the airport, identify unwanted objects, and many more.
Many functions as possible it can perform, and what we are trying to do is to map up and encode all the functions we want to perform. So we can break it down for check-in area, boarding area, security area, all those things can be broken down.
The scare was that they might not be ready, but with what we've seen, everything is in place.
You could see also the chairs are reduced to 250 in this hall. It used to be 500. But this is all. This can take only maybe two flights, local flights. So we'll know how to stagger them to ensure that the place is not crowded.
By the time the airport reopens, domestic passengers will be required to be at the airport 3 hours before departure, as well as 5 hours for international passengers to enable them observe the new airport protocols. Emmanuel Ayimiro, NTA News.
All intending air passengers will now be mandated to observe strict measures when domestic operations resume at some designated airports in the country. Minister of Aviation Hadi Sirika laid down the rules when he led members of the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 to the domestic terminal of the Murtala Mohammed International Airport in Lagos on simulation of commercial flight operations. Dotun Ogunyemi was there.
This simulation exercise from flight arrival, ticketing and boarding of passengers was to demonstrate the readiness of civil aviation authorities to resume seamless operations with strict mandate on enforcement of the set-down safety rules. These rules are ranging from arrival at airport 3 hours before all domestic flights take off, compulsory use of face mask, compliance with 1.5 meters physical distancing rule while standing, waiting or sitting, among all necessary protocols.
And I can assure you that we've gone very, very far. We are almost ready to begin. Almost ready to begin. That aspect had scored, I think, in excess of 90%. The airports also, especially Lagos, Abuja, Port Kano, and a few others, are at that level. We're sure that we're in excess of 80% to 90%.
Aviation is a highly regulated sector, and it's one of the reasons why we wanted aviation to go first in terms of preparing the country for what is going to be the new normal.
People must take these responsibilities and comply. So the issue of compliance is very, very critical.
Air operators and other businesses have largely borne the brunt of grounded operations at the airports for several months. They are showing commitment to enforcement of laid-down regulations as government finalizes plans on cost implications.
So the airlines have got a lot of work to do to educate the passengers.
The members of the PTF also used the opportunity to passionately appeal to Nigerians to be self-disciplined and obey all safety protocols to reduce the spread of the virus. In Lagos, Dotun Ukmiyemi, NTA News.
Meanwhile, European Union set to exclude travelers from 3 countries due to coronavirus as World Health Organization targets end of 2021 to deliver 2 billion doses of COVID-19 vaccine to the world. Adebola Brooks Sunday has this and more on Global Updates.
The Nigeria Center for Disease Control has tested 125,090 samples of COVID-19. Out of this number, 23,298 samples were positive. So far, 554 fatalities and 8,252 recoveries have been recorded, leaving the nation with 14,491 active cases. And the Africa Center for Disease Control has also reported 359,408 cases, 9,283 deaths and 173,057 recoveries on the continent. On the COVID-19 dashboard of Worldometer at about 7 p.m. local time, 9,957,652 persons have been infected with coronavirus globally. 497,830 deaths confirmed, while 5,398,402 people have recovered. The World Health Organization has concluded plans to deliver 2 billion doses of COVID-19 vaccine to the world by the end of 2021.
It's clear that because all people are at risk of COVID-19, all people should have access to all the tools to prevent, detect, and treat it, not only those who can afford to pay for them.
And the European Union is set to exclude travelers from the United States, Brazil, and Russia when the bloc reopens its borders to outsiders on July 1. Diplomats cited the uncontrolled transmission of the new coronavirus in the 3 countries.
And still on COVID-19, the Minister of Women Affairs, Pauline Talin, has charged Nigerian women to always remember the frontline workers in their prayers as they constantly putting their lives on high risk in a bid to safeguard Nigerians from the dreaded coronavirus pandemic. The minister gave the advice at the launch of the National COVID-19 Register by Society Committee Against the Pandemic. Obiageli Gwoke reports.
As the fight against coronavirus gears up in Nigeria, both government and non-governmental organizations are not resting on their oars to ensure they flatten the curve of the pandemic. This time, Society Committee Against COVID-19 is partnering with Ministry of Women Affairs, Ministry of Health, National Council for Women's Societies, amongst other organizations, to launch a history document, National Register for COVID-19, to share the experiences of Nigeria during the era of coronavirus.
The purpose of our gathering here today is to sign the register of COVID-19. And COVID-19 has come with so many challenges, and those that are most hit, you would all agree with me, are women. Women are the caregivers, women are the mothers that nurse the affected victims.
We have woken up, maybe at a time we must talk to ourselves. Let's consider this our morning and take COVID-19 behind us.
This move seeks to appreciate and register the names of all individuals as well as organizations that have made indelible impact in the fight against COVID-19.
Protect yourself as stipulated by the Ministry of Health.
In every kind of problems that we have, the National Council of Women's Societies begin to sensitize people.
We have made history today. I will continue to be at the forefront of this fight.
The register, when completed and duly signed, will be distributed to Nigerian missions abroad, foreign missions in Nigeria, institutions, national and state assembly libraries in the country. Obiageli Ugoke, NTA News.
And as COVID-19 threatens lives and economies worldwide, attention is being drawn to the need to support micro, small and medium enterprises, MSMEs, in view of their strong contribution to livelihoods, communities and economies in the midst of the pandemic. Muplang Dakok reports that this was stressed at a press conference which is part of activities to mark this year's World MSMEs Day, organized by the Small and Medium Enterprises Development Agency, SMEDEN, in Abuja.
Victor Emmanuel, who owns a pure water factory, is among the more than 90% of micro, small and medium enterprises owners that account for around 70% of jobs worldwide. It is in recognition of businesses like this that the United Nations in 2017 adopted the 27th of June every year as World MSME Day. The coronavirus pandemic, however, is not allowing MSMEs to breathe well this year, which is why the Small and Medium Enterprises Development Agency, SMEDEN, is celebrating the day, recognizing the huge impact of the pandemic on MSMEs in the country, in line with the global theme, COVID-19, the Great Lockdown and its impact on small businesses.
If you look at Nigerian economy now, compared to other economies, you will see that Nigerian economy is still doing better than other countries. This is because largely of the positive attitude of the Nigerian businessmen and women.
MSMEs Day 2020 is also dedicated to raising awareness on the need for greater investment in MSMEs.
I also want to call on the CBN to maybe think of increasing this palliative 50 billion. I think maybe in a very short time the MSME will exhaust the 50 billion, and I think they should have had additional money for MSME because we are still under the lockdown and we are still under restriction in the country.
Director General of SMEDEN is using the day to encourage the likes of Victor to key into the CBN COVID-19 fund and other similar funds. In Abuja, Muplang Dakok, NTA News.
And to further discuss some issues arising from the World MSMEs Day 2020 is Mr. Monday Evans, Director, Enterprises and Development Promotion, Small and Medium Enterprises Development Agency of Nigeria, SMEDEN. You're welcome to the studio.
Yeah, thank you very much.
All right, as a major driver of poverty alleviation and development, how have SMEs fared amid COVID-19 lockdown, and what's the impact that they've made in the economy and the masses?
Yes, thank you very much. Like is pointed out, today is the World MSME Day, as declared by the United Nations. That 27th of every year is the year for celebrating MSMEs across the country. And of course, I'm representing the DG of SMEDEN. And we're saying that this COVID-19 has been has a great impact on MSMEs, considering the fact that most of the activities of MSMEs have gone down in terms of access to finance, in terms of markets, in terms of capacity building. It has really affected them. In fact, most importantly, most of the MSMEs have laid off their staff because of issues related to lack of ability to increase their markets. They have also not had access to finance that will help them grow their business and so on and so forth. So the impact of COVID-19 on small businesses is very, very high. And that is why the government is thinking about what to do to sustain them through this COVID-19 crisis and also to support them post-COVID-19 crisis.
Okay, during the report, there was a request that the CBN would need to increase the loan they're giving small businesses. I want to ask, are SMEs really coming out to take these loans?
Yes, like my DG said, now, The CBN came out with a 50 billion naira COVID relief fund, which is meant for small businesses categorized into either household or SMEs. Of course, SMEs, from the last count, the survey we did with MBS in 2017, there are about 41.5 million of them. 50 billion naira may not go to anywhere. So that's why my DG is saying, in order to make sure that we support MSMEs and then support them tangibly, that this quantum of funds should be increased so that to go around all the MSMEs in the country and be able to support them to come out of this COVID experience.
Okay, statistics has it that both formal and informal small and medium enterprises make up at least 90% of all firms and accounts. How can Nigeria maximize this potential? Yes, as a government, you know, we have the National Economic Sustainability Plan, which is talking about 4 major areas where they can support small businesses in terms of payroll support, in terms of restructuring the existing loan, in terms of granting them low interest loan, and in terms of making sure that they guarantee offtake. Specifically for us, for CBN, for instance, they have the 50 billion naira COVID relief fund. They also have the ASMIS fund. For SMEDAN itself, we have what we call the One Local Government, One Product program, in which we have also extended the moratorium for MSMEs to pay back the loan. We also have what we call the Conditional Grant Scheme for small businesses, which is targeted at making sure that we train small businesses, give them micro-insurance, register them with CAC, formalize them, open bank accounts for them, and then give them a grant of 50,000 naira each. And we started in 2008 to do that program. And of course, we're also implementing what we call the National Enterprise Development Program, which is also targeted at training small businesses in terms of entrepreneurship and vocational skills, and also providing money for them to do their business. And of course, we don't just stop there. We also provide a platform for supporting them with a business development service, which is a kind of follow-up activity to make sure that small businesses use these resources to improve their businesses. Okay, thank you very much for that insight, Mr. Ewans. Glad to have you always in the studio. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yeah. All right, we'll be taking a break now. More reports when we return. Don't go away.
Nigerians, let us take responsibility. Stay healthy, stay safe, and curb the spread of the virus. Take responsibility. The coronavirus spreads from one person to another. Let us avoid crowd gathering of any kind for any reason. Take responsibility. Avoid traveling from one state to another during these lockdown restrictions. Obey all the rules that are put in place. Take responsibility. Stop spreading fake news and unverified reports about the coronavirus. There is no known cure for COVID-19. Take responsibility. Observe all the measures that can help stop the spread of the virus. Together, we can do this, but only if we take responsibility. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, Africa's largest television network.
NTA International News. Africa as it is.
Welcome back. Now, President of the United Nations General Assembly, Professor Tijani Mohamed Bande, has described the adoption of the UN Charter adoption 75 years ago as a moment of reckoning. Professor Bande said this at a virtual ceremony to mark the 75th anniversary of the UN Charter. More on this with Adebola Brookslyn Sunday.
The Charter was adopted when the Second World War was in its final months. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres said it is an anniversary of that milestone as global pressures are spiraling up.
We need to reimagine multilateralism, give it teeth to function as the founders intended, and ensure that effective global governance is a reality when it is needed.
UNGA President Professor Tijani Mohamed Bande encouraged the international community to drive onward by displaying heroism and solidarity in the fight against COVID-19.
This is a time for action, ambition, and partnership. 3/4 of a century ago, skeptics doubted the resolve of the members of the United Nations Cynicism did not prevail then, nor will it now.
The UN chiefs say what the world needs now is solidarity and cooperation to help defeat coronavirus and build back economies in the spirit of one community. Adebola Brooksland Sunday, NTA News.
Immediate past National Chairman of the All Progressives Congress, APC, Comrade Adams Oshomole, said he has accepted the decision of the National Executive Committee to dissolve the National Working Committee, which he chaired from June 23, 2018 until 25th of June. The former APC National Chairman, who disclosed this while addressing journalists in Abuja, acknowledged his contribution to the Progressives family, particularly the victory it recorded during the 2019 general elections. He said, as a loyal member of the APC and in line with the decision during the last National Executive Committee meeting, he has instructed his lawyers to withdraw his case earlier intended to challenge his suspension at the Supreme Court.
To the issue of legality or illegality, the bottom line is the president who invited me to lead the party and who gave me all the support and who mobilized all the support across the country for my emergence as chairman also presided over the meeting where the NWC has now been dissolved. And because I have always assured the president of my loyalty, so as a demonstration of that loyalty to Mr. President, loyalty to our party, and loyalty to the Nigerian nation, I have decided to accept the decision in good faith and to maintain my loyalty, my respect, and my admiration for President Muhammadu Buhari. To sustain the legal action, we tantamount to disobey one of the decisions that the President has reached, namely that all cases be withdrawn from court. I still believe that even as a member of APC, I have a duty to lead by example.
When it comes to leadership at all levels, everyone is a leader in his or her own right. However, the second Nigerian Prize for Leadership, NPL and Partners National Leadership Dialogue Series identifies value orientation as what is lacking in the country. Haman Jabani reports on the dialogue, which took place virtually with over 200 participants, panelists, and members of the NPL governing board.
The Nigerian Prize for Leadership and Partners National Leadership Dialogue is primarily to raise the consciousness on leadership as an important and fundamental matter in governing, not just at the political level, but also at the economic, social, and cultural identity. It also seeks to raise vibrant and credible successive government and generational replacement. The participants say some of the major leadership problems in Nigeria have to do with not giving the elites an educated space, just as those in leadership positions are not training and learning.
That there is very strong desire to introduce leadership in the curriculum of education in Nigeria at every level, primary, secondary, tertiary, that leadership should be taken very seriously.
Sometimes with no competence or capacity or experience or knowledge, and they come into governance sphere with high or the highest positions, and they are either clueless or they are overwhelmed by the requirements of leadership.
The stakeholders identified 15 variables that include education, competence, credibility, personal integrity and conduct, naming and shaming as value orientation that must be imbibed by all to achieve leadership success.
Wherever people have to take decisions affecting the interests of other people, it is necessary for someone to show leadership.
There are people who are carrying around all kinds of certificates in this country, including PhDs, who are not educated. So it's really not a matter of certification. The country is full of certificated illiterates. It's a matter of how history shows that you have learned.
Key players commended the NPL for coming up with the dialogue series while charging political parties to change their orientation, just as youth must develop leadership capabilities as well as learn from elders. Hamman Jamani, NTA News.
And in security, Boko Haram terrorists' logistics base has been destroyed and scores of their fighters neutralized in another set of successful air interdiction missions executed by the Air Task Force of Operation Lafia Dole under the subsidiary Operation Long Reach. A release by Major General John Enenche, Coordinator, Defense Media Operations, Defense Headquarters, says the air strikes were carried out on the 25th of June 2020 at the Tungali and Bukar Meram in Borno State after a series of surveillance missions indicated a surveillance of terrorist activities at the two settlements. And similarly at the Bukar Meram, Boko Haram terrorist logistics hub on the fringes of the Lake Chad. The airstrikes, which were carefully timed and executed in multiple waves from maximum effects, resulted in the obliteration of designated portion of the terrorist facilities. Several of their fighters were also killed in the process. The Chief of the Air Staff, Air Marshal Sadiq Abubakar, commends the Air Task Force for their dedication and professionalism, urging them to intensify the air offensive against the terrorists and all other criminal elements threatening the peace and security of Nigeria. Let's now talk sports update with Tamara Ebiwi.